Welcome to Kumbasoft DPAA tutorials. This tutorial is about creating host aliases within your appliances. And before you just shut down the video because you're thinking, oh, this isn't useful for you, you're going to find out there are many features that are very powerful within DPAA to help you create host aliases in a much faster way than you may have ever done before. So be sure to set your video playback to high definition, and though some visual details of DPAA may have changed since this video was created, the functionality will be the same. So to set this scenario up, what I've done is I've selected a couple of appliances and I've selected the default domain. Again, we're doing this so it's clear that this is the domain we're working in, but DPAA knows I'm working in the default domain when I'm creating things like host aliases and IP addresses and various things like that. So what I've done is I've also gone to the Find IPs tab up in this area of the screen. I've selected the Find tab and then the IPs tab, and then what I have is I have selected a IP address match pattern, and I've searched for all the IPs within the selected appliances matching this pattern. So at this point, let's suppose I've identified a number of IPs that I want to create host aliases for. Maybe they're new AO VIPs, maybe they don't have host aliases and you want to create host aliases for them, or what have you. You can select those IPs and you can either use this hamburger menu over here, and then you can go about the process of creating host aliases, or if you prefer, you can just right mouse click over the table after you made the selection, and you can use this. This creates the same menu as the hamburger menu. I can create host aliases right from here. So at this point, I've got a screen, and it looks like something went wrong here, and it actually didn't. What happened was I've got an aggregate list of IPs. Even though I selected 4 here, I've only got 3 here. That's because I have a .5 selected 2 times. And this is going to be important a little bit later, that I've got the .4 from 1, the .6 from 1, but the .5 from 2 appliances. In this case, DPAA is assuming, more than likely correctly, that you want to create a host alias in the same way in all the machines you're working in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to DPAA, I'm going to go to .4 and call this HA1. I'm going to go to .5 and call this HA2. And I'm going to go to .6 and I'm going to call this one HA3. Now, another feature is, let's suppose I've selected 100 IPs, and this would kind of be unwieldy, but it's not impossible. DPAA will let you do it. But let's suppose you selected one too many and you realize, oh, I don't really want this host alias. That's not the IP I thought it was. You can just turn the create button off right here, and you can kind of veto that IP. So if you're dealing with a lot of them at once, it makes it easy not to have to cancel it, unselect what you didn't want, then come back into the screen, especially if you've gone through the process. Let's suppose you have a scroll bar here and you've got a lot of IPs and you get way down there and you've typed in all these host aliases, you find 2 that you didn't want. You don't want to have to cancel your screen and start over. So DPAA allows you to just turn that off and not create it. We're going to go ahead and create them all. So when I select finish, we're going to see it come back to us that what DPAA has done is it's created HA2, okay, in 2 different places, because HA2 was the .5 host alias, and I had that on both appliances here. Even though I only had to type it in once, it created it twice because I've got 2 places where I'm saying I want to create a host alias, and it matches those up. Then, of course, I had the HA1 created on the .4 in the Dev1 appliance, and I had the HA3 created for the .6 in the Dev2 appliance. So now that I'm done there, if I search my list again and go back through this, it's going to look like something may have broken. You're looking at this and saying, whoa, what has just happened? Because I had just searched for these. I didn't have this many entries in here. But when this screen, when you're on the Find IPs, what DPAA does is it searches everything it can in DataPower to find where that IP may be configured, or well, the matching IPs might be configured. And so it looks like we have duplicates here. We have this set, which clearly came from the host alias configurations within the boxes, and that's exactly what we expect to see. We also have this set up here, but this is coming from the DNS name service from the appliances. So it's not duplicating. What it's doing is just showing you, hey, I'm finding it there, because it may not. You could find an IP not in a host alias, and that's kind of what we had before. We didn't have the host aliases here before, and so in order to locate them, basically, the appliance found it everywhere it can find it, and so that's why it's looking like it's more than what it should be. Now there's a second way to create host aliases, and even though we have another tutorial on how to create IPs, what I'm going to show you is you can create host aliases when you are creating IPs. So I had these 99 addresses. We're just going to go and expand them to kind of make it clear. When I pop up the menu, I'll use a hamburger menu this time, there's an add IPs option. When nothing is selected, you can see that's the only option available to me. And if the table is empty, I have this option available to me. So I'm going to select add IPs, and at this point I get a wizard to go create IPs. I'm going to create a new Ethernet secondary IP in here. And then I'm going to create it on, say, Ethernet, what have we been working on here? Ethernet 3. And I'm going to go next. And I'm going to create some new IPs. Let's make them stand out. So I'm going to do 99.99.99.10. And then I'm going to put a comma, and then 99.99.99.11. So these will stand out a little bit when we do it. The little checkbox that sits right below it says Create Host Aliases. So I can turn that on, and for every IP I've listed in the IP list, I can create a host alias as well. So we're going to call this HA4, HA5. So now I'm going to create, now if I have 3 IPs but only 2 host aliases, the first 2 are going to get the host alias. So you don't have to match them up exactly, but if you don't, you could have some unexpected results. So generally speaking, when you're doing this, you're wanting to match the number of host aliases with the number of IPs you're creating. Although DPAA will still do its job without failing if you don't do that. So I'm clicking next, and this wizard is showing me where I'm creating these IPs. So it's giving you a review of what's going on. It's saying, okay, I'm going to create the 99.10s in each appliance. I'm going to call the host aliases HA4, and they're going to be secondary standby IPs. The same thing with the 11s, except for their host aliases are going to be called HA5. When I select finish, what happens is I get the new IPs in there. It creates the host aliases. I'm done already. I can click this. Now this particular add IP screen actually goes through and relists the screen automatically for you so you can see the new IPs. When we're just creating host aliases, we're not creating new IPs. Even though the search will reveal more places it found it, it's not really creating new IPs. So that's why the Create Host Alias screen doesn't automatically refresh the screen, but the Add IP address does. And here's a couple of our new IPs here, and you can see the host aliases created. They're the host IP from the DNS. There's the host IP from the DNS. And if we keep looking, we'll find the host alias configurations represented in the table as well for the new IPs we've created. And we've created those IPs all over the place in the Ethernet 3 interface on these 2 appliances. It was just that quick. I've just created 2 new IPs and 2 new host aliases in 2 appliances in a few seconds. If you were doing this on the appliance, it would take you so much longer to do that simple thing I just did. Even though you can add more than 1 secondary IP pretty quickly in the appliance, adding the host aliases that match to them is very error prone and very long because of the way they developed that screen. So you can see there's some very powerful features here in DPAA that give you an advantage over just trying to configure the appliances by yourself or on each appliance. I could have done this on 10 and it wouldn't have taken me any more time than to create it on 2. So that kind of gives you the idea of how powerful this tool can be. And at the end of the day, what you can see is that I don't make typographical errors when I'm creating the HAs, the host aliases, with their IPs at the same time I create them. So that's another big advantage. So if you like what you've seen there, go out to www.kumbasoft.com, There are many, many other tutorials that are available to you, probably 12 hours or so of tutorials. That's how big this tool is. It takes that much time to explain every feature in this product. Or you can go to the Contact Us page and you can put in your information. You can request a license or technical support. Thanks for watching and have a nice day.